Welcome back to another edition of the City That Never Sleeps show. I'm your host, Brandon Pockers, joined as always by my co-host, Ryan Toomey. Ryan, how you doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon?
Good to be back. Can't wait to get into it. Good to see your face.
Good to see your face as well, my friend. We got a lot to get into, a lot to cover. Baseball is where we're going to start, and we'll get there in 1 second. Lots of discussion to go over in terms of that. Got some NFL news that broke kind of before the show regarding the Jets and some earlier news in the day regarding one of the best wide receivers in all of football. So we'll definitely have to cover that. The NBA Finals have concluded. The Denver Nuggets are your champions. We will get into that later in the show as well. Looking back at that series a little bit and going over some New York Knicks stuff. And the New York Rangers have hired Peter Laviolette as their new bench minder, head coach. Well, however you want to put it. Not exactly thrilled about it. We'll hopefully get into that a little bit later as well. To me, just to jump right into it, the Mets and the Yankees. New York baseball is how do I want to put this? Mid. It's mid. It's at its very best right now. It's mid. And I'll give you the floor right here because we have a lot to get into regarding this. And I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on everything before I go into my rant that I'm probably going to have a little bit of.
Well, I definitely knew there was going to be a rant on your end for the Mets, for sure. But when it comes down to the Yankees, too, they're past 6 since the last time we spoke. They're not the same ball club. I guess, obviously, you've noticed, too, there's obviously many reasons that go into that. And I think the big one is Aaron Judge. It's weird to see in a sport like baseball, so many guys on the field, so many guys have their jobs to do, so many guys can really impact the really situation of a game or just impact the game in general. But for one guy to have such an impact for a ball club is very surprising to me. And I'd like to get into that a bit too, just to see how much one player really changes the course of really the entire team, especially being a right fielder. Obviously, he's one of the best players in baseball, but still, I mean, some of the numbers were the Yankees are 30-19 with him on the field, and without him now, I believe they're 8-11. And in those 19 games that they haven't had him, run production isn't there. Run production's down. They just don't seem like the same ball club. And with that being said, Aaron Judge is not the only guy out. They're dealing with issues. Bader's not playing as well. And then you got guys on the field that they're not going to bring a winning atmosphere to the New York Yankees right now. And it's a bit of a situation. And right now we got ourselves, I don't know if you've seen Game of Thrones, Brandon, but a little battle of the bastards going on right here. The New York baseball teams, because it's a little down period for both right now. I mean, Yankees, I think, are still in a better situation than your Mets over there. I know you'll get into that, but this is a series, man, that can really help whoever comes out the victor in it. We're going to get into details about it, I for sure, about what we believe the outcomes of each of these games are going to be. Because, again, these are only 2 games. Very small sample size of the season here, but this might be the opportunity for one of our teams to really pull through and pull ahead in their respected divisions or their respected situations that they're in. Lucky for the Mets, I got to say, though. I mean, lucky you guys. You're in the NL right now, and the AL East is a dogfight right now. I haven't really checked the standings, but I would not be surprised if the Yankees are in 4th. I would not, because the Blue Jays were right above them. I'll take a look at that in a second, but I mean, I don't know. Their outfield right now, I was talking about today in a group chat. I mean, Jake Bauers and Billy McKinney are 2 outfielders. I mean, Bauers has had a hell of a season for up to Jake Bauers standards, but how long can this keep going? I mean, again, and then people are going to look to point a finger at someone. I don't even think you can point a finger at Boone. He's been dealt a bad hand right here. The pitching has done their job. The past few games is very tight. I believe they've held the Red Sox in the last 3 to less than 3. Just couldn't score anymore. And it's very obvious on the offensive end. They don't really have the guys right now that are really playing. Stanton's not playing every game as well. We finally got Stanton back. I saw a funny stat of Donaldson the other day. Donaldson came back, and he's been hitting home runs, but then they showed a stat. He's got 6 hits on the season. 6. 5 of them being home runs. That's atrocious. These are Joey Gallo numbers, and Joey Gallo is doing way better than that this season. So, curious to see where the Yankees come out of this, how much longer they can survive with Judge on the IR, and hopefully he's back ASAP, because at this rate, they're falling into a hole. And again, like I said before, they are in the AL East. You can't keep falling in this division because everyone keeps winning. And if you fall behind, you might be good in the AL in general, but in your own division, you might be, you're obviously 3rd best right now, 4th best, 5th best. You might get a playoff spot, but it's going to be tough road to the finish here. We're not even halfway through the season yet, but it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's so intriguing because, you look at the Yankees and you look at their past few games, right? Or really their games up until, but basically from last week's episode until now, right?
Yeah.
They're coming off this series win against the Dodgers. And obviously the turning point is Judge gets hurt. And we're cognizant of that, but you're losing 3-2 to the White Sox and then 6-5 to the White Sox. Then you got the shutout, but then you're losing a series to the Red Sox. And
3-2, 2-1, and then 3-2 again, I believe.
3-2, 3-1, 3-2. The one game you won, you scored 3 runs. And that's the thing for a team that has a lot of pitchers that are coming back and are having to get their feet under them. You're asking a lot of a pitching rotation like that to consistently hold the line, because let's face it. I don't have their stats pulled up. I can pull them up now. But if we look at, and we're on Baseball Reference right now, we look at the Yankees' offensive stats this year. I have a feeling that Mr. Aaron Judge is going to have a little bit better numbers than the majority of the team. If you look at it, you got, if we sort it by batting average, Judge is hitting 291. After that, your best player in terms of batting average is Rizzo at 269. And then you have one guy above 250 in Gleyber Torres.
And the thing for Rizzo, too, Rizzo was batting a very low 300 for most of the season until past couple of weeks, and he's fallen all the way at 270.
Exactly.
So he's having 0 production, no home runs, no nothing. You look at, I didn't even notice this last game. I watched the whole thing. They only had 3 hits.
Yeah.
Lucky they got 2 runs.
And that's the thing. We talked about the Mets not producing, the lineup not producing. Well, you look at the Yankees right now. IKF, OPS is 641. Gleyber Torres, 760. Willie Calhoun, 725. DJ LeMahieu, 679. Oswaldo Cabrera, 551. Anthony Volpe, 605. That's not good enough. It's simply not good enough. And you want to dive into some advanced statistics? You want to dive into some, advanced offensive stuff? Aaron Judge is a top 10 player in all of Major League Baseball in terms of WAR. If you want to look at those statistics, where does he stand right here? Or my apologies. He is a top 20 player falling at number 20, but he's still 2 wins above replacement. He's still bringing a ton of value to this Yankees roster in multiple areas. The next highest WAR is Harrison Bader with 1.1.
Not in the lineup.
Anthony Rizzo, 1.1. I'm sure that's dropped a little bit. And Gleyber and Volpe are at 1 apiece. Those are your only guys above or at 1 win above replacement. And that's I'd say kind of like league average in a sense, or close to league average. Anthony Volpe is bringing a lot of his value in terms of the fielding and the extra base hits. His numbers on the year are not good.
No.
They're not good in the slightest. If you
and
really
he's
want
going through a slump for sure.
If you want to look at Volpe's legitimate hitting numbers, the guy's hitting 186, and his on-base percentage is under 260. Where's that value come in? He has 14 stolen bases, 9 home runs, and 26 RBIs. But that's not good enough for what this team needs. If you're not going to get the production from Stanton, from Donaldson, from IKF, from Volpe, where's it going to come from? And quite frankly, it's crazy because the Yankees might end up in that Red Sox area, the hovering at 500, but because the AL is so good and the AL East is so good, you're going to be in dangerous waters very quickly. Because the Blue Jays, you look at their past 10. You talked about the Yankees struggling. Blue Jays are 7-3 in their past 10.
They're right there. They're a game back.
Blue Jays are starting to figure it out. Their pitching's starting to figure it out. The Baltimore Orioles and Tampa Bay Rays are juggernauts, which that's a sentence I personally never expected to say this year. Not that they wouldn't be good, because I was excited about Baltimore. But I didn't expect Baltimore, if we look at the MLB standings,
it's got to be second best.
To be 41-24 before the All-Star break.
It's got to be. Are they the second best record in the MLB? I believe they are.
I think they're either second or third. If we look at it, they're tied with the Rangers and basically a game up on the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
They're game up on the Diamondbacks, a game up or 2 games up on the Braves. They're one of the best teams in baseball.
Yeah.
It's just, and I want to tie this in because it's all going to tie back in together when we wrap up our MLB talk, because as we'll get to it, these two teams play each other. You could say it's the battle of the idiots, the battle of the mid, however you want to call it. But this is probably the least amount of juice I've ever seen, at least in recent memory, from a Subway Series on both sides. Both teams are struggling. Both teams are scuffling. And it's like both fan bases are not thrilled. They're not happy with what is going on with these teams. And that brings me to the Mets. Because guess what? As bad as the Yankees were this past week, nothing, and I mean literally nothing, compares to the week that the New York Mets had. I mean, like, where to even start? Where to even start?
I guess the best way to start is that Braves series.
Okay. The Atlanta Braves series. We talked about it. We literally talked about it. The entirety of our baseball segment last week. This was a key week in determining where the Mets go from here. And the crazy part about all of this is that the Mets didn't exactly play bad. They had leads in every single game against the Braves. Every single one. They were not trailing in the entirety of the game all the time. They were not, bludgeoned by this juggernaut team that, let's face it, has just as much inconsistency as other teams. They just lost to the Detroit Tigers on a walk-off yesterday. They had the lead. They were up in games. And it goes back to the inconsistencies, the damn inconsistencies that we talk about with this team week in and week out. Look at the final scores of these games. Look, simply. 7-5. How did that game end? Well, the Braves scored 2 runs in the 8th inning to take that lead. The second game of the series. Or my bad. That was the second game of the series. They lost the first game of the series 6-4. And then the heartbreaker of all heartbreakers, they put up 10 runs, 8 of those against Spencer Strider, and lost the game in the bottom of the 9th. They gave up 13 runs to the Atlanta Braves. And then on top of that, you lose 2 of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates, who, yes, they are leading the NL Central, but we have talked about it here on the show. The Central is one of the worst divisions in the entire sport. Why is this Mets team losing games like this? It is the same problems. It is the same issues. and they have only become more pronounced. Let's go box score by box score, because I feel this is the best way to look at it. We want to start with the first game of the Braves series, right? I feel like that's an accurate place to begin this dialogue. You agree with that?
Go with it. I mean, yeah.
All right. First game of the Braves series. Mind you, this is after getting swept by the Toronto Blue Jays, which we discussed last week. First game of the Braves series. Mets take a 4-1 lead. 4-1 lead with, mind you, Carlos Carrasco on the mound, who has been good as of late. They hold the lead until the 6th inning. Carrasco went 5 innings pitched. Not great. Not great. He didn't even get out of the 6th inning. You know,
from what I recall, it was 4-3 at the end of the 6th, right?
I think I might have been a different game.
The first game? We were texting during this. I remember they took him out. Ultimately, the issue goes, I mean, you keep going, but it's got to be the bullpen's not helping.
No, it was the 6th inning where
4-4?
6th inning
they took the lead.
They took the lead in the 6th.
Okay.
Because I remember, I think it was Carrasco that gave up the double to Murphy, and then Ozuna doubled, and all that happened. But it goes back to the point, you know, the Mets score the runs. They take the lead, 3rd inning, they score the runs, and then the pitching blows it. Flashing neon sign, Mets can't play consistent baseball. If the hitting's there, the pitching isn't there. And then as we see, when the pitching is there, when they do start to shut them down, the Mets don't score a run the entirety of the game. They have their opportunities. They don't score the entirety of the game. You know, Marcell Ozuna has the insurance run. Orlando Arcia and Ozuna come through in the 6th after Sean Murphy doubles. The Mets pitching falls apart. First game of the series. Heartbreaking because you have a 3-run lead against the Braves. You're looking good, and then the bullpen falls apart. Why is the bullpen falling apart? Because you're having to push them because the starters aren't pitching well. Moving on to game 2 of this series. 7-5 loss. Same story. It's the same damn story. Brett Beatty leads this off with a single to center. This is after Pete Alonso hit on the wrist. You know, I'm pretty sure this is when, this is the Alonso game, and we will talk about Alonso in a second. But the Mets strike first in this with a Brett Beatty RBI single, a Francisco Alvarez home run. Orlando Arcia gets back a run. Tommy Pham then homers to center. And this is the game I remember vividly as an encapsulation of the Mets' issues this season. Because it was a little bit of everything. So the hitting's there. And you think the pitching's there when Max Scherzer on the mound. He's dealing. He's striking out batters. And then you reach that 5th inning. And Sean Murphy hits a home run. A 2-run bomb. Makes it 4-3. And yet Scherzer gets out of the inning. So then we get to a point where Scherzer is coming out for that 6th inning. And he gets tattooed to begin the inning. Right there, Buck Showalter should have pulled him. And that's where we have the second issue. Now your pitching isn't supporting the lineup, but now on top of that, the manager isn't making the correct decision. He isn't pushing the right button. He leaves Scherzer in, and Scherzer gives up the lead. Michael Harris, who has been struggling immensely this year, doubles. Ronald Acuna, single. All of a sudden, guess what? That 4-1 lead, again, snap of the fingers, it's 5-4. Tommy Pham, who's been honestly a revelation to this point, in a good way for this team, has a nice bench bat and a spot starter, ties the game up. Mets don't score after that. Michael Harris hits a home run that puts it away in the 8th inning off bullpen arms, where, once again, overworked bullpen because your starters, specifically your high money starters, aren't getting the job done. And the worst game of all, the extra innings loss to the Atlanta Braves. The New York Mets score 10 runs. They take a 5-3 lead after going down 3-0. They then add to that, make it 6-3 in the top of the third. The Braves battle back. They make it 6-5 with an Arcia single and a Ronald Acuna walk. But then Francisco Alvarez, who has been a revelation for the Mets, as I will get to, homers the center field. And then I don't understand why. Yeah, for some reason, the scoring summary jumps from 8-5 to 13-10. Doesn't even go through the rest of the game here. But you can tell the Mets choke the lead. The Mets get 2 more runs. But the Braves score 10 and then end up winning the game. The Mets score in this series, if my math is correct here, 19 runs. 19 runs against the Atlanta Braves in 3 games and didn't win a single one. They had leads in all 3 games and didn't win a single one. How does this carry over to the next series? They get smoked by a football score to the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Steelers beat the Giants or Jets, however you want to consider it, by a touchdown, 14-7. Terrible. Got to the point where, yeah, the Mets scored 5 runs in the 9th, but that just made it a 7-run game. This could have been a 10 or 12-run game. And yes, they took a game in this series. They didn't lose all 6. They won 5-1, but it's back to the same thing. Lineup isn't supporting the pitching. On the Sunday game, where Carlos Carrasco goes 4 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, and 1 K, and 3 walks. He's not pitching great, but he's doing enough, and the lineup isn't coming through. So if I sound all over the place, it's because I kind of am. It's because this Mets team, it makes you scatterbrained, because to what point is this consistency going to show up? At what point is the team going to find their footing? And I don't have the answer to that. I truly don't. You look at stats, Pete Alonso, by a wide margin, is this team's most important player. You want to look at some similar stats to we looked at with the Yankees. In terms of wins above replacement, Alonso is at the same number as Judge, but he's hurt. Nimmo, Lindor, and Alvarez and McNeil are all above 1, and no one is even at 1 after that. You have multiple guys in the negative category. You want to look at OPS for this team, which I would not recommend. You have 3 guys, Pete Alonso, Francisco Alvarez, and Tommy Pham, above 800. 1 guy, Brandon Nimmo, is in the 780s, and no one else is above 750. No one. You have multiple guys 700 or lower. You want to look at pitching, right? ERA plus. Kodai Senga is your only starter that is truly doing well. Max Scherzer has started to pick it up, but the rest of your rotation is 80 or below, or really 90 or below, including Max Scherzer, who's at 85. Your bullpen, ERA, David Robertson and Brooks Raley have been great. Jeff Brigham's been great. Drew Smith, Adam Ottavino over 4 ERAs. Nagasic, Tommy Hunter, Dominic Leone, John Curtis, 480 ERAs or above. It's not working. It's simply not working right now. And I'll toss it back to you right now. Where do the Mets improve from here? Because you want to look at their schedule beyond even this Yankee series. It's one of the toughest schedules out there in baseball. Where does this turn around?
I mean, from everything I've seen, I got to watch a couple of games last week for the Mets specifically. I watched all the Yankees too, but it's got every part of their team needs an adjustment. Their starting pitchers have to become more reliable. They need to go farther into games. Their hitters need to really start consistently hitting. There's too many. Again, we said it last week. There's too many great guys on this team that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Especially injury to Alonso doesn't help. That's not going to compare him because I think Judge blows him out of the water. But Alonso's their Judge. They need Alonso out there. They need that from time to time. He'll put them on board with a big home run.
He's the MLB leader in home runs.
Yeah. They need him to produce. I mean, when it comes to bullpen, I mean, I've never seen – this reminds me of a Mets bullpen from a couple years ago that blew the most games in a season.
The first year with Edwin Diaz, right?
Right? Yes. Yep. It was like near – if they won half those games, they would have had like one of the best records in MLB.
Yep.
And that's where it hurts. People really like to put blames on a lot of things, but the bullpen is so important that if you're into games – I mean, that whole Brave series, they were leading the whole – they lost every lead. And that's a tough look when you're in every game and then come to the end, you blow it. I mean, I want to point a finger at that last game, game 3. They're in extras, have bases loaded, 2 outs. They couldn't pull through. The Braves get out there. I knew right from the start they were going to win. Didn't know they were going to win in that fashion with a walk-off 3-run home run by, I believe it was Ozzie Albies, again in that series, who kind of tore him up. But each piece has to just gradually get better, or at least one has to just pick up the load. I mean, even if the hitters stay inconsistent and poor, the starting pitcher stays a little inconsistent and poor, at least if the bullpen comes up, they'll win a couple extra games. Vice versa, if the starting pitcher picks it up and maybe the other 2 kind of falter off, they'll still win a couple games. Just one of those 3 has to pick it up. And as of right now, it is getting to a point where they're falling a little too short. They are the 11th ranked team in the NL. And all right, you could say, all right, there's still a lot of season left. There's still a lot to do. You also have to counter that teams in front of them are going to keep playing baseball. That they'll be good if every other team ahead of them keeps losing, but they're not losing. So they're getting to a point right now in the season that if this trend keeps going, it's not going to be good, and then it's going to be a real issue for the Mets because, again, we've talked about they put so much money into this season, into this team, for such high hopes. I mean, they're doing commercials before the season, for God's sakes, with a Super Bowl commercial. I mean, you'd expect this team – you didn't see the Pirates have a Super Bowl commercial. Look at them. They're ahead of their division. Hey, doesn't matter what the record is, they're first in their division. That's all you got to do. Win your division. Get to the playoffs. Do a job, and no one on this Mets roster right now is doing a job. Let's see. Question: has Lindor, since our last topic, has he picked it up at all?
A little bit. I think
it's creeping closer to 240.
His numbers are: he has a 216 batting average with a 420 slugging and a 711 OPS. So not as bad, but still not.
I guess the moral of what I had to say, it's just you can't expect every part of your team, bullpen, starters, hitters, to bring it every day in and day out. But you got to expect at least one of them or 2 of them to show up every game. It can't be no one showing up, especially, again, with what's been put into this roster.
Yeah, so we got some comments in the chat. Brian says he's going to disagree to the poll. I think the Mets will find a way to win 1 game. We got Mike saying, I hope the Yankees sweep the Mets after the Mets. Rob says they will split. Yankees have been inconsistent too. And sucks both Alonso and Judge are on the IL. Before we get to our poll question, and that'll be the main topic of discussion for the rest of the MLB talk, just to throw out some more stats here. Mark Canha has gone from a 128 WRC plus to a 106. Escobar from a 106 to a 93. Starling Marte from 136 to 87. Justin Verlander's a .2 WAR. Max Scherzer has a 1 WAR. The Mets defensive run saved has dropped from plus 13 to minus 6. They're 17th in runs per game. They're 12th in WRC plus. Their starting pitcher ERA is 25th in baseball. The relief pitcher ERA is 22nd in baseball. This is all from an MLB Now video that came out yesterday, kind of going over, why have the Mets been struggling. And this brings me to what you talked about and then the series coming up, because they both intertwines with the overall discussion of New York baseball as a whole. In the wild card standings right now, amazingly, even with all the struggles they've been having, the Mets are only 3 games out of a wild card spot. I feel like that speaks more to the National League itself than the Mets themselves, but still, you're not dead yet. You still have a chance. The problem is, the more the Mets struggle, the more teams they're going to have to surpass. Right now, the only teams behind the Mets currently are the Chicago Cubs, the Colorado Rockies, the Washington Nationals, and the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals, amazingly, are the worst team in the National League. By, if we look at it here, a half game. The Cubs are only 2.5 behind the Mets. The Mets go on a skid, they could end up as one of the worst teams in the NL. And you don't want that. Not with the highest payroll in baseball. But the teams you do have to jump right now are the Padres, who are 2.5 out. They're tied with the Reds, who are 2.5 out, and the Phillies, who are 2 out. The teams in the wild card spots are the Giants, the Brewers, and the Miami Marlins, who are having a fantastic year. And I guess you could consider it's the Dodgers, Miami, and Milwaukee and San Francisco are tied for the 3rd spot. So you have some work to do. And quite frankly, the Mets have a path to making the playoffs still. They're not dead in the water yet. But guys like Jose Quintana, who was supposed to be a back-end starter for them, needs to come back and do well on the mound. A guy like Eliezer Hernandez, who was supposed to be one of the main Mets relievers that they signed, needs to come back and do well. The lineup needs to find some consistency. Even with Pete Alonso out, you need to right the ship. I personally am not thrilled that even with Alonso out, they're still not playing Mark Vientos full-time. He's not in tonight's lineup. No way to find out what you have in a guy if you don't play him consistently. So once again, it's that step forward and then step back. It's just mid. It's always this year been middling. You need your starting pitching led by 2 guys you're paying a combined $80 million to pitch like the players they're supposed to. You need your bullpen to not be terrible, to not give up an insane amount of runs. And most of all, you're hitting. You need guys like Francisco Alvarez, who has the 2nd highest amount of home runs on the team and has not played as many games as most guys on the team, to continue to hit. You need Brett Beatty and Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo to all step up collectively with guys like Mark Canha and Starling Marte and Tommy Pham. I'm not saying it needs to be perfect. I'm not saying the Mets need to go from this not-so-good baseball team to all of a sudden back to World Series expectations, because that's not how it goes. But once you start to find that success, once you start to see a team that's on the rise again, you can feel better about their chances of, if they get into the dance, they can make something happen. But this Yankees series, our question of the day is the Mets will get swept by the Yankees. And I personally think this is a split, but a split in the sense of neither team looks particularly well in either of these games. I don't think that the Mets are going to play great. I have no reason to see why they should all of a sudden turn it around. There's been no signs of them turning the collective team around. There's been a sign here, a sign there. But what I've been looking for, the consistency, a full game, a full 2 games, a full 3 games. We haven't seen that since the Tampa Bay Rays series and the Cleveland Guardians series. It's simple as that. And it's unfortunate, but it's as simple as that. With the Yankees, they're missing Judge. The Mets are missing Alonso. These are two teams that are scuffling, and quite frankly, I think they're going to split, and neither team is going to really know the direction they're heading in. With the Mets heading to or hosting the Cardinals for a 3-game set before traveling to Houston and Philadelphia. With the Yankees, if we pull up their schedule in the next few games, heading to Boston and then hosting the Seattle Mariners. I don't think either team's going to have a great sense of what they are after the series, but I do think neither team gets the sweep.
With my point to it, especially, I mean, we are fortunate enough to, with this series, if you've seen the pitchers due to make starts, it's Severino versus Scherzer game 1, and then Cole versus Verlander game 2. So right there, Severino, you can still make a case for Nestor Heaven, maybe not this season, but saying you're getting the 2 best pitchers most likely from each team. Maybe not in the sense of stats or that sort of thing, but you're getting their 2 top guys. And that's where I have to disagree as well with the poll, because I can't see the Mets throwing out there still Scherzer and Verlander and not winning at least one of the games. I think that Verlander versus Cole game is going to be very good. That's even though the teams have both been playing very poorly, that's can't miss baseball right there when you got these 2 guys on the mound. But yeah, this is an opportunity for each of these teams to find life. They're both right now, even though the Yankees skid is nowhere, again, saying it, it's nowhere near where the Mets skid is currently, but each team has an opportunity to kind of find some life, find some opportunities where they can push forward. I have to agree with a split as well. I think that's the safest bet. And hopefully they give 2 good baseball games. Hopefully there's some hitting. Right now with these pitching matchups, it's looking like I can't see anyone getting hits. So I'm curious to see. Maybe they'll prove us wrong. Sometimes, hey, when the odds are down, you know what? Maybe sometimes they like to flip the script. I would like to see the over-unders on this game because they'll end up scoring 10, 15 runs each for it'd be crazy. But no, I do expect a split. And hopefully some guys that we have been expecting to pick it up can pick it up. I hope Stanton plays 2 games too. They keep benching him every other game. And you know what? There's a point, yeah, we'd like him to stay healthy, but he's not doing anything on the bench.
Yeah, I just, as a Mets fan and you as a Yankees fan, it's just, how can we expect positive things right now? How can we expect these teams to play to their capabilities when, 1, they're nowhere near their capabilities right now, and 2, their 2 best players are currently out. You could argue the Yankees' 2 best offensive players are out. So it's going to be a very interesting series. And, you know, looking ahead, I personally think that the Mets on this stretch of games before next week, I think that they go... I think they go 3-3. I'm not sure what ones they win or what ones they lose. I think they sweep the Cardinals, but I don't think they beat the Astros, and I think they either get split or honestly get swept by the Yankees. I don't think the Mets have it in them to sweep them. I haven't seen the consistency from Verlander and Scherzer this season. More concerned about Verlander because Scherzer has begun to pick it up. But at this point, why should I be confident? You know, why should I be confident in the Mets pitching? Why should I be confident in their ability to go out and sweep the Yankees? I'm confident in their ability to win 1 game, but I don't think they sweep them. And then the other games before next week, I think they sweep the Cardinals or at least win 2 or 3, and I don't think they beat the I don't think they beat the Astros. I think the Astros are going to overmatch and overpower them. So I'm sitting at a nice 3-3 or maybe 4-2 at the very, very best.
Yeah, when it comes to the Yankees, I got the only hope right now is just to get the guys back off the IL. 2 important names of Judge and Bader. Hopefully they can be back for the Red Sox series. Don't believe so. Maybe Bader for the Red Sox, but hopefully Judge for the Mariners series coming up. I mean, in these next 8 games, I believe it is, expecting 5-6. I mean, that's the best you can look for in any type of way, and hopefully they can pull it off. And if they can do that, they'll point themselves in the right direction to finally get to the point. Rodon time's almost coming for the Yankees.
You think the Yankees are going to win 5 or 6 of these next games?
I think they could. 100% they could.
Well, I want to hear a prediction. What do you think they're going to do?
They'll win 5.
Really? Okay.
They'll take 1 from the Mets. They'll take 2 from the Sox because there's no way they're not going to go back into Boston after the series they just had and play as poor as they just did. And with the Mariners, I really think the Yankees have had just, I don't know, with Bader back. Bader's going to be back by then. Judge should be back, hopefully. I just think they'll have a good grasp. And they play the Mariners very well usually. So I really think they can win 5.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So, no, yeah, it's not down, but it has been a down week for the Bronx boys.
Hey, it's going to be an interesting game tonight. I'm very excited to see what happens. And for our last part of MLB bets for this week, it's time for the parlay. Time for a parlay of the week. Last week, I think we did pretty well. I think that we did.
We didn't win, so.
No, we did not win. That is true. Our 6-leg parlay, we hit on the Diamondbacks money line. We hit on Orioles run line plus 1.5. We hit on Atlanta Braves money line. That one was very, very interesting. We did not hit on Yankees money line. Or run line minus 1.5. We did not hit on Pirates run line minus 1.5. I think the Oakland A's absolutely smoked them that night.
They did.
And we did not hit the over in the Toronto Blue Jays Houston Astros game. On that note, to me, get us started. What are we thinking?
Going with Strider on the mound. Even though they're going with against a guy who's had a little success for the Tigers, I'm going Braves minus 1.5.
All right. Great start. For me, I am going with a Arizona Diamondbacks money line. I am loving what this team is doing. Yes, they are facing Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler has not been himself to this point this year. Maybe betting against him is exactly what Wheeler needs, but that remains to be seen. I love Corbin Carroll. That Rookie of the Year pick is looking better and better every day. Francisco Alvarez is going to give him a good run for his money, but we might be reaching a point where you can start talking about Carroll as an MVP contender and not just a Rookie of the Year contender. But that's my first leg. Not Corbin Carroll. Arizona Diamondbacks money line at plus 112.
For my next, I think I got to go with just the Houston Astros going against the Patrick Corbin Nationals. Corbin's picked it up since the start of the season a little bit, obviously, but I think he's just a walk in the park for most MLB teams, and I think minus 1.5 is a good bet for the Houston Astros.
Yeah, so my next one, I'm going to go with the over in the Tampa Bay Rays Oakland A's game. You know, the Athletics are playing very well as of late. Very surprising. But the Tampa Bay Rays are the Tampa Bay Rays for a reason. They're going to score runs. They're going to hit the baseball hard. They're going to hit it over the wall. They're going against H. Harris. Maybe is that Hunter Harris? I'm not really too sure who this Oakland A's pitcher is. If he pitches great, I will definitely bring it up on next week's show. But I love this line. I think the Rays could score 8 runs themselves tonight. And I think the A's are gonna put up some runs too. So I'm feeling good about this run line.
There you go. And then with my last, I think the Dodgers in LA going against Lance Lynn, who's struggling this season. Gonsolin, who's having a good year so far. Gonna go with the Dodgers money line.
All right. And to round out the show, gonna go with, and I may be bold here, the over in the Mets-Yankees game.
Wow.
The over.
What's the line?
7.5.
They're asking for it.
Yeah, the fruit's being dangled a little bit lower than I thought it would be, and they're getting a bite out of me. They're getting a bite out of me. This could be the one that blows up in our face for this parlay. It could be the one that seals a nice little bit of a payday. But I personally think both teams, you're not going to know what to expect from their offense, and I think this might be the game, weirdly, with the better pitchers as of late on the mound, where the offenses come to life. So to round out our parlay, going to go with Mets Yankees over 7.5 runs. Toomey is still there.
I'm here.
There we go. We put $2 on that. That wins you $66.93. Nice little payday out there. So, yeah, that's what we got for our baseball coverage. Toomey, is it time to move on to NFL, NBA, or NHL? Where do you want to go next?
We'll cap off the NBA season.
You want to cap off the NBA season? All right.
Yeah.
But before we go there, I want to remind you guys that Creative Window Design Center, serving New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida, fully authorized Hunter Douglas dealer. Contact Jeff at 609-226-0391 for a free consultation. So, NBA season came to a head last night. The Denver Nuggets won their first ever NBA championship. Didn't win one with Melo. Didn't win one with Sir Charles. I think Sir Charles was there for a little bit. Potentially, that may be Phoenix. Could be getting my names mixed up. Didn't win one with AI. They won one with the Joker, though. And man, oh man, was that a fun game to watch down the stretch. And it was a fun game to watch how it was sealed. Truly. I mean, Toomey, what were your first reactions? Because the guys that sealed the game for the Nuggets, on top of Jokic and Murray, obviously, were some of the most uncanny players that you would expect, like that could possibly steal a game. But in all honesty, you wouldn't have expected them to do that.
I mean, yeah, and that's what we've been saying throughout the whole entire series. It comes down to the Nuggets were a fully put together squad, and I think the big talks that you've seen on all the shows lately have just been like, this team has been together for a long time, and they finally put the pieces together. And you know what? They deserved it. They won it. They got it. A big name, Bruce Brown, down the stretch. I think that's one of the guys you talk about. And you know what? He's been impactful in every series they've been playing in. I remember seeing in the Lakers series, he very dominant in the paint, had some big plays, and it showed last night. And you know what? They pulled through. I think that last game, though, I have to point a finger at the Heat and say they kind of took themselves out of that game. The Nuggets, being a team that doesn't really make mistakes, they can score at you from anywhere, especially with a guy with Jokic. He can do anything, do everything. The Heat really took themselves out of it, and I think it really just took the wind out of their sails. I just think too many turnovers down the end of that stretch, too many poor shots at the end there. I'd like to see Aaron put as well to it, but the Heat weren't really meant for it, and, I mean, it really makes our prediction of the Nuggets winning that much simpler just watching the end of that game.
I mean, if I remember correctly, most of us went with Nuggets in either 5 or 6, and we were spot on there. And we said it here on this very show when the Miami Heat won that game. And I remember the words I said to a point where it was very interesting to see the Heat win that game. But the key was going to be, could they do it again? Because if they did it again, I was going to feel much better about their chances winning a series. Ends up, they couldn't do it again. And they came very close last night. But it just seemed like the Heat were just running out of gas. And Denver was this well-oiled machine that every player had a defined role, and every player executed that role to perfection. Look at Aaron Gordon this series, doing whatever, either on offense or defense, that Denver needed from him. Jamal Murray is Jamal Murray. Nikola Jokic is probably the best player in the world. if we want to get into that conversation, because I think it's a very worthy one to have. But the series and this entire playoffs, I feel like, can be encapsulated by the idea of bench and role players are absolutely vital and are the key to winning championships. Evan said it perfectly. He had an Instagram story. He cannot join us today, but he put it perfectly on his Instagram story where he said, I'm happy that these NBA playoffs showed how much more important bench and role players are. Because we went through our super team era. We went through the fact that having 3 superstars is incredible and gets you immediately to that playoff conversation. But as the NBA, and this has been something that I've been seeing, and I feel like is so much more prevalent, especially in the modern game, with every player coming in the league becoming more and more skilled. And that wide gap from the 2012 season when LeBron and that big 3 was happening to now, that gap of what a role player is in terms of skill compared to the next guy, compared to the better players, not necessarily the superstar, the elites of elite, but that next class, that class is like that. The gap went from here to here. It's not that big anymore. And it's why you're seeing all these role players, these guys that thrive in specific roles, the bench players being prioritized to a high level. And it's just going to go even further now. Because like you said, a Bruce Brown playing a key role in grabbing those rebounds to seal the Nuggets to championship. KCP. A glue guy for this Denver Nuggets team. Hitting clutch threes. Getting a huge, big-time steal on Jimmy Butler to essentially clinch the game for the Nuggets. And hitting key free throws in spots where a lot of guys wouldn't come through there. Ice in his veins at that point, I may argue. Christian Braun giving great minutes when he's on the floor. All these guys you would never consider to be household names, I would argue were just as vital in their own way in helping the Nuggets win this championship as Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray were. I'm not saying that they did more, but in their own way, they were just as important. Let's flip to the Heat side. Only reason you could argue that the Heat even had a fighting chance in this series is because of guys like Gabe Vincent, Max Strus at times, Caleb Martin. Obviously Bam Adebayo, but Adebayo's that start. Jimmy Butler didn't exactly play great this series at all. Kyle Lowry was huge at points. You could keep going down the Heat roster. These are 2 teams that have role players playing to their best capabilities because their roles are defined. The Nuggets just executed better. The Heat didn't hit the same amount of threes that they usually did. That was a key difference. And the Heat stars didn't consistently show up, mainly Jimmy Butler. Murray and Jokic showed up in the majority of the games. Butler did not. Adebayo was like half and half. And I think that's what it came down to. You want to look at the numbers, the true shooting percentage, the actual 3-point foul. Like, we could go in depth, but just from a surface level, just from the eye test, it was evident that, number one, the Nuggets may have been just slightly deeper than Miami Heat. The stars for Denver showed up. And let's be honest, we talked about it at the beginning of the series. The Heat were gassed. You could see that in their roster. They were gassed. They played borderline a 7-game series with the Knicks and almost went there. They played 6. They played 7 the prior series with Milwaukee, and it went 7 with Boston. War of attrition, man. That's what the playoffs are. And the healthier team usually is the team that comes out on top. And what was Denver in this series? The more rested and the healthier team.
They only lost 4 games the whole playoffs, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Pure dominance. Got to tip a cap for the Heat, though, to the path they took there for sure as well. But, hey, no one remembers what you do right in the Western Conference Finals. the big things to get the NBA championship ring. Obviously, it's cool, it's important, it's big for the franchise, but there's only one victor at the end of the year, and this year is the Denver Nuggets. So good for them. Enjoyed watching it, and curious to see, because all the talks now, obviously, basketball season's over. Everyone's like, who do you got favored for next year? Who do you think's got it? And if this team stays intact and healthy, I don't see why not. They could go back to back. And why Nikola Jokic is the best player on the planet. I will say because I don't think it. I really think he proved it. I don't think anyone compares. I don't think anyone besides what LeBron used to be does what he does.
Yeah, I don't. The problem with predicting the next year's champion, I can give that to you in July.
You never know now, right?
I can give that to you post draft.
Especially we saw all the big moves that of recent that happened during the season or free agency as well. Not yet, but you could predict.
All right, and in the vein of that thought, who would you go with as the West champion, the East champion, and your Finals champion?
If I think better.
Way too early predictions.
Way too early. I mean, gotta go with the Denver Nuggets. But if I had to pick a team that's not the Denver Nuggets, I would go with Golden State Warriors.
Really?
Warriors. Yeah, I'd go with the Warriors.
Really?
Yeah,
okay. Why is that?
Just through time, you can see this team always bounces back through adversity. I mean, you got a guy like Steph Curry who still is the best point guard on the planet. And they did have their troubles this year. Obviously, talks about, you saw all the issues they went through in the beginning. They're going to make some moves too, I believe.
Draymond Green fighting Jordan Poole.
Exactly. Issues like that. I think this is a time for teams like that to look at what the Nuggets did and see, like, all right, who can we bring on? Who are the role players we can bring on that can really help us? I think that's with Kerr at the helm and with Curry, Thompson still, I think that's a team that can really formulate a good roster around those two guys. And I believe they can have a shot next year for sure.
So for me, looking at the East, if we're looking at what it is right now, in terms of what rosters are right now, I'm going to go with Boston from the East.
Okay.
I think they bounce back, and I think they're going to make additions. But is Jaylen Brown still there? Is, the depth of that team still existing? On the other hand, what does Philly do? I can't say Philly because how are they adding if James Harden leaves? I don't know how Milwaukee's roster is going to shape up. Will Donovan Mitchell and that core in Cleveland still be there? We've seen crazier things happen, by the way, in the NBA. What did the Knicks do with their roster? How does Miami add? There are so many factors with these teams in the East that I'm just going to go with the safe team and say Boston, because this offseason is going to determine a lot of who are the juggernauts and the main contenders in the East and who's that second team. In the West, though, how can you go with anyone else besides Denver?
Yeah, right? No, yeah.
There's too much confusion with the other top contenders. How many games is John Morant going to be suspended? That's a whole episode's worth of conversation. What will the Pelicans do to add to Zion and that core? Are the Lakers going to even be able to make moves, or significant moves, I may add, after re-signing or attempting to re-sign Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura? Is LeBron the same player? Is Anthony Davis the same player after another year? Is Golden State even remotely close to the same team in terms of the guys on that roster after this offseason? There are so many questions with all these teams around the league, and guess what team there isn't questions about? The Denver Nuggets. That's it. That's like the only team in the league there's no questions about, because Jokic is under contract, Jamal Murray's under contract, Aaron Gordon's under contract, and maybe a few other guys, but the core of your team's there. Michael Porter Jr. is under contract. That's the other guy. The core of your team's there.
Yeah.
They're all under contract. Everything else is the auxiliary moves, and Denver already proved that they can they can take care of that in a very good manner.
Yep.
So that's the team I am most confident in by a mile. And I'm not just saying that because they won the championship. I'm saying that because look at the roster they've built over the past few years.
No, it's a very great point. Very Don make a good point with the Kings there too. They fell short in their first time back in the playoffs, but that team for sure will be back in a good position next year. And you know what? Nothing. Hey, same. A lot of teams, they just need that little playoff experience, and that's great core down there that could really probably make some moves next year. 100%.
Yeah. Do you think that the Kings could reach for that 1 seed next year?
Oh, 100%. I mean, again, with the Nuggets too, the only claim I can make that maybe they have trouble is, hey, going back-to-back is tough.
Yeah.
Especially injuries. You don't really see it often. Last time was the Warriors, and that's, because they added Kevin Durant, for God's sakes. That team was stacked when they won back-to-back. And even I don't know, LeBron's teams never did, right? Those Heat team never went back-to-back, right?
Miami went back-to-back once.
They did. They lost back-to-back.
So if you remember, I'm pretty sure the way it went was they went back-to-back. LeBron went for the 3-peat, didn't get the 3-peat, and he went back to Cleveland.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that was the last big 3-year. Because it was a 4-year deal, right?
Yeah.
Lost to San Antonio the first year. Beat OKC. My bad.
Beat San Antonio.
Lost to Dallas. Beat OKC. Beat San Antonio. Lost to San Antonio. LeBron back to Cleveland. That's my my brain trying to remember over a decade in the past, or close to a decade in the past.
It sounds somewhat correct for sure. But no, yeah, it's can't wait to get into it as it gets closer. See what happens with the draft, free agency. A lot of interesting games going to be thrown out there for sure.
We have a very fun offseason ahead of us, my friend, and it is going to be great covering it all with you. And that moves us to the NFL. And we don't have, like I said, our betting expert in Evan here today. But, I must say, I'm not exactly a slouch in that department either. And that is a perfect transition to our NFL topics. But before we get into betting, there were some interesting headlines that came out today. And for once, to me, it feels like we're being blessed because the crazy news happened before our show. Right off the bat, number one, Adrian Amos, the free agent safety, signed with the Jets. I literally saw the news and I went, thank goodness. I literally just like this.
How did I not see that?
You must have been under a rock, man.
When did that come out?
Literally right before the show.
Oh, that's crazy. That's awesome. Oh, I did. Yep, you're right. Right before the show. I just wasn't. Wow. Oh, that's very good.
Yeah. So
very big. That safety hole was always a topic of discussion for us.
They added a free safety. They actually made an addition. Like I said, they needed to make one. You weren't going into the season solely relying on Tony Adams to be that guy. You got rid of Will Parks, which I like Will Parks, but I like Adrian Amos better. He also is another former Packer that is familiar with Rodgers. So at the end of the day, you want to look at it just at a, I wouldn't say minuscule or molecular level, because that's just using words that make no sense in that context. This is an addition that, one, needed to happen. Two, was very good that it happened because it's a great player that's being added. And number three, there's no real downside to it. You're adding depth, and if you don't need the depth, you get rid of the depth. You know, if he doesn't win the job in camp, he only signed a deal worth up to $4 million. He's not like he's taken up a good chunk of your cap. So it's a low risk, high reward type move for the Jets. Jeremy Fowler tweeted that many NFL coaches consider Amos one of the game's most underrated safeties, and he hasn't missed a start in 5 years. That is two things.
That's what I like. I like that.
Two things that the Jets need: health and talent. I'm very thrilled with this move because guess what? If Amos is the guy that he has been in the past few years, you only need him on a 1-year deal. That probably means Jordan Whitehead can be the player he was in Tampa. And guess what your only weakness is really on this defense, in theory? Linebacker. Guess who's still available? Kwan Alexander. There's a genuine path for this team, or this defense specifically, to not really have a giant hole, to maybe have room for upgrades, but not have this giant gaping hole on the roster that causes issues. I'm thrilled with this move. I truly am.
No, I am too. And I think the big thing too is it doesn't really matter. You get a guy with talent and you put him in a defense of this caliber, they're going to thrive. I really do believe that. Just with all the talent surrounding you, it is really hard to, I guess, really falter. And especially with this Jets defense, Saleh being a defensive-minded coach, I think the only way is up for this. And no, great move. I'm glad I didn't even know that before the show. And that's big Jets news.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy with the Jets adding to that safety room because remember, even with Whitehead too, you have Chuck Clark, and then you also have Tony Adams. So you can mix and match these guys. You can move them where you need to move them. And it just allows the defense to be that much better. But amazingly, the Jets were not the center of attention in the NFL world and not the center of attention in the AFC East for that matter. Toomey, did you see what happened with Stephon Diggs today?
He did not show up to camp.
He did not. But he apparently, and this brings us to the point of how media and this leaking works. Why is there like 5 conflicting stories about what's going on with Diggs? You know, you have the agent coming out and saying everything's fine. Yet Sean McDermott's coming out and saying that he's very concerned about Diggs' absence. Why is there all of a sudden an issue? He got paid. He got his contract. So is there an organizational issue? And if I'm Buffalo, I'm trying to get this solved immediately because this is the last thing you need, especially with both Miami and the Jets on the rise. And your team, guess what? There's a potential chance that your Super Bowl window has closed already. There's a chance that the past few years was your opportunity to win the big one. Because now, not only are you dealing with Aaron Rodgers and the juggernaut offense of the Miami Dolphins, if Tua stays healthy, you got Mahomes, a developing Trevor Lawrence, who is already, I think, one of the best in the league, Herbert, Lamar with a new and probably electrifying offense, and a bunch of other young quarterbacks. This is the last thing that Buffalo needs.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, very weird because as we do recall last year, they did end up on very bad terms at the end of that season. He was not pleased with how they finished. Didn't think it would really get to this point, but I think in the end it'll be fine. It is very strange for your coach to come out though and be like, "This is a definite worry." Obviously, it is a worry because minicamp it is very important for these guys to get in the building into the window. But again, this is Stephon Diggs. This is a top. You can make a case for top 5, definitely top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He's going to perform. He's going to come out. He's going to be good for the season. It's just saying what can be done to get him back into the, I guess, get him back into the room, get him back into the team, get him back working. He's going to be good. It just depends on, again, like you said, is there an actual issue within the organization? And hopefully not. This team's too good to end the way they did and go down the path they are right now. But I don't really think there's a real issue with it.
No, Josh Allen came out today and said Diggs' absence is not necessarily football related and that they're working through it. He says there are things that could have gone better last year, and it's possible that as an organization, they can do better communicating. He said he has his back. He also added that this does not work, what we're doing here without him. End quote. Other discussion about Diggs, his agent, Adesanya Bakari, said Diggs has been in Buffalo since yesterday morning, took his physical, met with the head coach and GM the past 2 days, and the Pro Bowl wide receiver will be there for the entirety of minicamp. But then McDermott came out and said that he's very concerned about Diggs. So is there a disconnect here? What's really going on? Quite frankly, are we going to even have the details revealed, or will this all be squashed? Von Miller also came out and said he's on Stefan's side. There wouldn't be a Von Miller here in Buffalo without a Stefon Diggs. So basically, to surmise everything, we don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
We don't know anything. And that's usually what it comes down to for these types of things, where information comes out, information's leaked, yada, yada, and guess what? It ends up being a nothing burger, or it turns into something big down the line. We don't know until it happens. And quite frankly, it'd be fun to speculate, like, oh my goodness, what happens if Stefon Diggs requests a trade? But I'm not going to play the hypotheticals here because there's no evidence to suggest that that's going to happen. There's no evidence to suggest that this thing is going to deteriorate to the point where the Bills are going to willingly give up their number one wide receiver by a significant margin. Because if that happens, that Bills offense and their ceiling drops, I wouldn't say significantly, but by a decent margin. But we don't speculate like that unless there's actual information to speculate on. So I'm not going to do that. But if, in your opinion, if you were to say what the final result of this is, what would you say and why?
With the stuff on Diggs?
Yeah.
Oh, I said it before. I don't think there's going to be a real issue once it comes down to the point of the season where they actually need him in the building and they're in a mindset where they want to win a Super Bowl. He'll be back with the team. They'll end up playing good football like they have been for the past how many years it's been, and I don't really think it's a true issue. I think he's still upset about how everything's gone with the past couple seasons and the issues that came in. I know there's a lot of issues with play calling he had with McDermott last season and stuff down the stretch of the end of the season, but I really don't think he wants to win, and I don't think there's really many better teams to be in than with the Buffalo Bills to win a Super Bowl.
I agree with that. I think something would have to go completely sideways.
Yeah.
In order for Diggs to request a trade or one out of Buffalo. Something would have had to go really bad or would still have to go really bad in order for that outcome to reach a point where there's no other option. Yeah. So I'm not going to look too much into it until we get a sense that, yeah, this is real. This is going to happen. So moving on from that, I think it's time to look at some division winner.
Wait, for that real fast, I didn't want to say too. Hopkins, other AFC East news, I guess Hopkins met with the Patriots, didn't he?
Yeah, he also visited the Titans. I think he's doing a free agent tour. I don't think he's close to signing just yet.
Okay.
Hasn't been any rumblings about which way he's leaning. But it was just, he took a visit to New England. He took a visit to Tennessee.
Very interesting. Those are two teams that I would not expect him to look at.
It's right? Like you sign with one of those teams. It's like, oh, you just want to get paid.
Yeah.
Which I can't blame him. Not in the slightest.
No.
So back to what I was saying. The AFC East, and we'll look at the NFC East as well today. Looking at some division winner odds, and then we'll also look at what the conference odds. And I'd say as we move further into the offseason, we're going to officially make our division picks. I'm choosing not to make my division picks until July, the very earliest. If not August. But that's kind of where I'm sitting at. Looking at divisional odds for the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills are plus 130, the Jets are plus 250, Dolphins are plus 290, and the Patriots are plus 750. Looking at those teams, the four teams in this, you could argue, loaded division. I don't know if it's necessarily loaded, with the Patriots, but I'd say the top 3 teams are definitely going to be very good this year. Who would you lean towards on June 13th and why?
Right now, between the Bills and the Jets. I haven't looked at the Bills' schedule. I would like to look at the Bills' schedule that too, but just as of right now, just the Bills have dominated this division for the past couple seasons, and there's really no signs of why they're not going to do that again next season. I just feel like them being together for longer and have the connection they do with their coach. I mean, the Jets, again, this is brand new. This is a new system with Rodgers in it. You got the new coordinator. You got a bunch of new players playing together. Again, a lot of great players playing together, but hey, you never know what's going to work out once they finally hit the field. I think the safe bet right now is the Bills. But don't count the Jets out once it gets down to that July area, with more moves still on the rise and still a bunch of good talent out there and we don't know where they are yet. So definitely don't count the Jets out. Don't count the Dolphins out. I think it is safe to count the Patriots out. But this division's pretty wide open for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the Patriots are this, terrible team. I just don't think they're as good as the other 3 teams in the division.
They could easily make a case for the playoffs next season.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be able to usurp an Aaron Rodgers-led Jets team, a very talented Bills team, and a very talented Dolphins team. Now, looking at these odds, if you want to go just chalk, sure, go with Buffalo. But I just, in the sense of when it comes to betting for me, I usually like to pick a team that I feel confident in winning a division, but also can make me a little bit more money than just going chalk.
Yeah.
In that sense, I'm looking at the Jets and Dolphins. Those are the 2 teams I'm leaning towards. And it's not saying that I'm not confident in Buffalo, but I think if everything goes right with Miami and Tua, you have one of the best offenses in the entire league. And you added Jalen Ramsey to that defense. And you already have Xavier Howard. You have a very good corner tandem. You have some good edge players. You have good linebackers. You're not on the same level as, I'd say, a Jets defense or a Bills defense, but you're pretty close. It's not like this gap is completely just unobtainable. At the same time, though, I'd lean the Jets more because I feel like the Jets have a better defense and their offense can finally keep up with a Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua-led offense. I also lean Jets because bringing up the name Tua, I would be very concerned about his health. Because it's one thing for him to say he's confident in himself and all that, but what happens when he's rolling outside the pocket, he takes a hit, he bangs his head a little hard? Is the concussion history enough to where that next concussion doesn't take as much? Is the team going to be overly cautious with him because of the debacle that happened last year where they let him go back onto the field? And yes, may he not have necessarily been concussed? Sure. But the optics look terrible. And it could have been an absolute disaster for the Dolphins and the league. And quite frankly, in some ways, it was a disaster. You're 1-2 a hit away from Mike White being your starting quarterback or Skylar Thompson being your starting quarterback. And while that isn't the end of the world with a very talented coach in Mike McDaniel, it's still not a guy that can run the offense as well as Tua. So that's why I lean the Jets more, and is why I'm most likely picking the Jets in this spot. It's because I just think the Jets are the team with the best odds, and the team that out of having those best odds is the most likely to win that division.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And again, yeah, just like when we did the MLB divisions, it's definitely not as cut and paste as they put it.
No.
You can see now in the MLB, it's a lot of rumblings going to happen during the season. And, hey, it's a great insight, and you can't know until it happens.
You never know, and that's the thing. You never truly know until you step on the field and play the games. We literally predicted the Mets and Yankees to win the World Series, and there's a shot neither of those teams make the playoffs. It's not a high chance.
No.
It's not a likely thing that could happen. But it's something that is a very it's much more of a possibility than what it was before.
For sure.
So
100%.
That's just, that's something you got to look at and something you got to take into consideration. Moving on to the next division we wanted to talk about today, that'd be the NFC East. And man, the odds makers are very confident in one team and not so confident in some others. The Philadelphia Eagles, their odds are minus 105. Take that into account. There is one other team in the entirety of the NFL or two other teams that are favored to win their divisions at that point. The San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Past the Eagles, the Cowboys are at plus 175. The Giants are at plus 700. The Commanders are at plus 1,000. Toomey, who do you got and why?
I'm very shocked just to looking at this that the Giants are so far back, and not even that, because I do think the Eagles got this division, but the Cowboys are that close. I would really think that the Giants and the Cowboys would be as close as the Jets and the Dolphins were to each other. That's a shock because I do think that the Giants have a good chance of a better season than the Cowboys as well.
We said that last episode.
Yeah.
We said that we thought the Giants are going to have a better season.
There's no reason. Maybe with the Saquon news, that might be a little reason. But again, with the running back position, don't know why they're that far ahead. But again, the safe bet, and I think the smart bet, the Eagles, as I've been seeing, has the best odds to win their division out of any team in the league. Actually, maybe not. I could have been wrong with that, but they have very good odds, and I don't know why not. I like a team after they lose the Super Bowl to come right back out and be like, we have something to prove. We're here. There's no reason why this team should not be there with the additions they made over the offseason. They've pretty much only gotten better, it looks like, from what it seems like from offseason, look at the roster and stuff. So going with the Eagles, but I would take the Giants over the Cowboys. And with the Commanders, no.
I mean, we looked at the odds last week for the different, parlays and prop bets that the Giants have. And it's evident that the sports books don't have a lot of confidence in this Giants team this year, which is crazy because I feel like they've improved as a team from last year to this season. And I don't think the Cowboys have done that much. And look, all things considered, the Eagles are probably winning this division. 1,000%. That's simple as that. We got Don saying, give me Bills and Eagles. We got, like Toomey said, we got the Eagles with the highest odds out of anybody, out of any team in the entire NFL to win their division, and rightly so. But you're not going to place a bet on, a minus 105. Like, you're not winning anything at that point. You're kind of just being like, yeah, the Eagles are going to easily win the division. Non-Eagles team, I'm putting money on the Giants. They're not I wouldn't say these are my quote unquote division picks, but if I'm making a bet, you don't know how the football season is going to go. What happens if the Eagles sustain 2 major injuries or 3 major injuries that change the entire complexion of their season? What if the same happens to Dallas? It's a very feasible thing that the Giants, being the team that they are, could win that division. It's very feasible.
I think a lot of people give credit to Dable too. And Dable, if he's had one team on his radar this whole offseason, it's coming up with a scheme to beat the Eagles. And I think they'll give him more fight than they did last year because, give credit to the Eagles, they pummeled the Giants every time they faced them. So I think the Giants are come out with a game plan. And you know what? If they take a game from the Eagles this season, that division's up for grabs. It gets to a point too, for sure, because that means they can beat anyone.
Exactly. But it's to a point where it's not likely, but if you hit on it, you can make some money. And that's the point of sports betting. The point of sports betting isn't to make the easy picks. It's to make the picks that no one expects to happen. But when they hit, you're in the right.
Yeah.
And then to your point, I don't think the Commanders are close to winning the division this season. I'd say give them another year or two. So
I think
Yeah.
Tuesday's like that.
I think that wraps up our NFL conversation, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Any news on Dalvin Cook? No, nothing.
Nothing.
I did want to. I guess if we're done with this real fast, I did see a alert come across my phone of the Yankees lineup. I'm curious if the Mets lineup came out too. If we
It
want to
did
talk
come
about
out.
that real fast.
I spoke about how I'm pissed off Mark Vientos isn't playing again.
Oh, did you say that? Oh, so
I did say that.
it's Yankees lineup is strange just because the names. I mean, I'll run through it real fast. Bauer's batting first. He's bad first a few times this season. But Glaber's been the big leadoff. But so I'll just get into it. Bauer's batting first. Stanton in the 2 spot. Good to see Stanton in the lineup. Torres batting third. They move Rizzo to 4th. LeMahieu batting 5th, playing 3rd. IKF playing center, batting 6th. Billy McKinney playing left field, batting 7th. Higgy in the lineup is Trevino, who played last game, so give them day off makes sense. They're playing, and then Volpe playing shortstop again, batting 9th. Yeah,
sounds like a rough lineup to me.
That's the Yankees lineup right now, man. That's it's very interesting. I'm curious to see how it works out. Boone made some moves, taking Rizzo out of the 3rd spot, moving Stan to the 2, Glaber band 4th. So I'm curious to see. It's going to be a dogfight for sure. I think the pitchers are going to have the upper hand in this series and in this game specifically, and the next one too. So yeah, we'll see. Crazier things have happened, right? Smash that over.
It's a mid-off.
Exactly.
And speaking of mid-offs, the New York Rangers have hired their new head coach.
Yes.
Peter Laviolette or Laviolette. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I think that's a good way to say it. That seems close enough.
Laviolette, I think.
Yeah, sure. The town in southern New Jersey.
All right. As a non-Rangers fan, Toomey, talk me off the ledge, because I don't know too much about this guy.
No,
I saw he was the former head coach of the Capitals.
Yeah.
And the Capitals have not been good.
So a major thing in hockey, to get to it, is that head coaches, once they're in the league and they prove that they can stay in the league, obviously with most sports it's seen, but you don't really see many new faces get head coaching jobs. I think a clear example is Lindy Ruff of the Devils. I think Lindy's at like 4th all-time wins in NHL history. He's been coaching. He coached the Sabres forever, did great work with them, then moved to forget where it was, but then now he's with the Devils. But same with Laviolette. I just saw across the screen before that he has over 725 career wins in the league. I think they said that was like, I don't want to butcher, but I thought it said 8th. So once these guys get in the league, teams like to go the safe route. They don't really like to try new things. So they stick with coaches who's been in these situations before. But after that, with this guy, no idea who he is. Never heard of it. I think, what did it say? His last team was Columbus?
I thought it was Washington.
No, but his last, maybe, I guess if we get some information on that. But hey, he's been a guy who's been around the game and the NHL for a long time. So that's an upside for you. And it's curious to see the schemes, get into a more detail, what the Rangers need to help them, and then what was wrong with their team. Maybe he'll come in and fix some of the schemes, power plays, whatever it is, defense. But no, getting an experienced coach is not the worst thing in the world.
No, it's not the worst thing in the world. I would argue it's not the best thing in the world. It's kind of something that a lot of teams in New York have been used to. It's a lot of mid. The contract for Laviolette, according to Pierre LeBrun of TSN, 3 years and worth under $5 million per year. He has coached the Islanders, Predators, Flyers, and Hurricanes. So he said his latest stint came with the Washington Capitals over the last 3 years.
Okay.
They missed the playoffs for the first time since the 2013-2014 season and did not win a playoff series during Laviolette's tenure. But at the same time, if he's more flexible than Gallant, if he makes better in-game adjustments than Gallant, I'm not going to act like I'm some hockey guru and I know exactly what he needs to change and what he doesn't need to change. But to me, it just maybe I'm just not in the weeds as much as I need to be. This hire kind of just seems like a lateral move in a lot of sense, or kind of just switching up the guy in charge just to get a new guy in there, which isn't always a bad thing. And
No.
I feel like this happens in hockey a lot. Even when guys are having success, if something goes stale, a lot of teams are quick to pull the trigger. So maybe that's more of what the Rangers are going for here.
I guess that could make sense. And I guess with the coaching pick, again, don't really know much about coaches and what they're about, but it seems like the safe choice with dealing with a head coach, a guy who's been in the league forever, like I said previously. But yeah, we see it in a lot of sports too, NBA specifically as well. I know with my Lakers, I've seen a ton, just like you said, going through a real, maybe they had success and then a little bad patch and they just try and find someone else to command the ship. But when it comes down to it, again, we don't find out. Maybe we'll look into it more. I'm curious to see the guy's resume and stuff of what he's done previously to the Capitals and his success. But hey, anything to point the team in the right direction, right? The Rangers kind of had their fallout at the end of the season. They're losing the first round, but hopefully they'll come in, keep their stars. Hey, they've still got a ton of stars. Still got some great players.
Yeah, and we can't really go deep into the Rangers offseason yet because there's still one more game left.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's tonight.
It is tonight, yeah.
I don't really have much. I think Vegas wins, and if Vegas wins the cup.
Yeah, like we said previously. I did want to say, did you see the picture of Panarin?
I did not.
So there's a caption of him. I don't know where he was, but he shaved his head.
Oh, no.
And he did that because there was so much bad juju in his hair. He had to cut the evil out after their last loss to the Devils in the first round. So that's fine. I guess another news is too Zibanejad, DJ Zibanejad.
See, like I knew about this though.
I didn't know about that. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I saw it a few years ago, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then it came back up again. He's doing Lollapalooza. I think it's Lollapalooza something.
One of them in Switzerland, I think.
Switzerland.
Yeah, I guess I know they have some of those in the States, but I guess he's doing that. So that's pretty cool. It makes you like the guy a little more. From
I mean, I don't know. Maybe we should grab tickets and give a review.
If Jack Hughes was performing, I would definitely go. But no, but yeah, with hockey, not much. I mean, now the Knights have really controlled this series, and first two games for sure. Second game, big OT win. That was last Tuesday, I believe, or no, it was the same night that the Mets lost in the extra innings to the Braves. So that was the game 3, and no, big overtime win for the Panthers. And then last game I didn't quite get to watch, but I did see that it ended 2-1 or 3-2. I believe it was 2-1. Close game. Panthers had their chances at the end, but I'm curious to see Panthers they've showed their fight during these playoffs. So I do guarantee they will not go down without a fight. And
but they're potentially missing Tkachuk.
Yes.
That's a huge loss.
That is. And he's their guy. So if he's not playing, I guarantee a loss.
Yeah.
But if he is, he's been Mr. Clutch, and I think he'll keep that up.
Yeah. I think that brings us to the end of the episode. Unless you have something else to add, I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I'm tapped out, but I don't think there's
not really Devils news. I mean, Severson just got traded, they traded Severson to the Blue Jackets for a third rounder, and that works out too because he was good walk anyway. So they got something out of it. And then, with the Devils off season, they're once free agency comes, season's not over. So I guess there's not really much to talk about it. Know the plan though, but the ideas of what they're going to sign and who they should. But I think that's something for when hockey season comes to a conclusion.
Yep. So I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been another great episode. Always appreciate the comments. Always appreciate everything you guys do. It's been a blast, and we will be back, talking about all the latest New York sports, all the latest different things soon. And I'm excited to hopefully see a Mets win tonight. I'm not exactly banking on it.
Nope.
Not exactly banking on it this time. But I am very excited. It's a blast doing this as always, Tom. Any parting thoughts before we head out for the day?
No, I hope everyone stays safe. Go Yankees. U.S. Opens this week too, so that's pretty cool. Big tournament in golf. They talk about it as the hardest major, so a lot of good. If you have the opportunity, catch some golf this weekend, should be fun. And curious to see what happens in the rest of the sport world with the I guess NBA draft coming up, all that other stuff, free agency and all the sports. So
as the summer's heating up, it only heats up in the sports world. So for myself and Toomey, it's been real, it's been fun, it's been real fun. We'll catch you next time.